Hey there, gamers. It's Pruitt, Jim Davis. It's WebDM. You love them. You've been asking for them. It's the magic that comes from within. We're doing our show on Sorcerers. You're not going to like it. Sorry. So, Jim.
Yes.
If wizards have to study for it,
Yeah.
this show is about the it-getters, the it-havers.
They were born
Sorcerers
with it.
have it.
They have it.
They just need to let it out.
I don't know where to start with them. I personally, this is me laying out my biases and D&D prejudices for all to bear. I don't like sorcerers. I just don't. I didn't like them in 3rd edition.
Oh my!
Didn't play them in 4th edition, and don't care for them in 5th edition. I feel like I just don't.
Yeah.
But like a lot of things that I have a preference for and don't like, I don't think it needs to be removed from the game.
Right.
You know, my problem with sorcerers is one of sort of concept and execution. Mm-hmm. So specifically for 5th edition, I don't care for them because almost every other full caster except for the warlock stole the sorcerer's Kool-Aid and ran off with it. That being spontaneous casting. The one thing that set them apart in 3rd edition. And so the fact that all classes now, they pick their menu of spells that they have for the day, and then they order from that menu throughout the day.
Right.
Leads me to go, well, the one thing cool about sorcerers, the one thing that set them apart that was different in prior editions,
yeah,
everyone else can do that now. The flip side of that is the one thing that everyone else got to do, metamagic, now is the purview of only the sorcerer.
Exactly. So
and I just don't like either of those situations.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a monopoly on metamagic.
It really is, and I think, you know, to me, there's something to be said for a person who's born with magic, seeped in it, and they just have a natural talent for it.
Yeah.
And they're using that talent to manipulate the magic and getting a lot of flexibility out of it. But I'm of the opinion that, like, if it comes down to it, and there's the wizard studies and picks apart and learns how the magic works inside and out, and that's how they cast their spells, then how come they can't modify the magic? How come a deity doesn't grant a cleric the ability to modify the magic that they're granting them? I mean, there's just... So those are my two things with the sorcerer. Right. Is that there's... Well, I have the third one as well. But the first two is that spontaneous casting and metamagic. And I think the third one is just a lack of a solid generic option for
a cast.
For the caster. So right now, if we're talking about just the player's handbook, and even Sword Coast, so we've got Dragon, we've got Wild Mage, and we've got Storm. All three of those kinds of sorcerers. So there's no generic, just sort of arcanist, or Wild Mage is supposed to fill that role, but I don't think it helps. I don't know. So that's a lot to bring out right at the beginning of the episode, and I'd like to kind of revisit some of that. But those are my three things that when I look at the sorcerer, I go, these are the roadblocks towards me going, I really like this class.
Exactly. I find I've only played a couple sorcerers. I played Praetor for a bit. He's basically a predator.
Right.
And it's just because that's the best way I could have blasting shit, and he could be invisible and whatever. Yeah. And it worked. Yeah. But I didn't play him that long. But mostly in the live play with Theron.
Right.
And if you have a very refined concept, a sorcerer can work. But I do find that even with my very narrow concept, I found it hard to find the spells I needed in order to do the thing I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And we actually, from the first, and we talked about this in the live play, in the second live play, that how you allowed us to alter our characters just a bit.
Between the two, between the two sessions,
because I was using the refined Storm Sorcerer that took away the bonus spells and all that originally, and I had my character designed a certain way, and then you were like, you know, you can just have those bonus spells back.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, well, that changes things.
Right.
It changes the landscape just a bit.
Repick your spells.
And you let me change 1 feat over, and you let me change a metamagic because I was trying to stay within theme originally. Yeah. But, like, seriously, why can't the Storm Sorcerer call lightning?
That was at the end of the day, at the end of the day, that's what made me go, this class needs a bonus spell list.
They need more spells.
Is because a Storm Sorcerer can't use an existing storm to call down lightning and hit someone with it. They might be able to cast a lightning bolt, they might be able to do shocking grasp, whatever. They can't pull down a lightning bolt from a storm cloud and hit someone with it. And that to me is why I said, okay, They just need they need a bonus spell list. And I thought about it for a while. I was like, okay, compared the two options, the one that was in Unearthed Arcana and the one that's in Sword Coast. And I go, really the only difference is the lack of a bonus spell list.
Yeah.
And then I turned to both the Cleric and the Land Druid, and I saw that they not only get a bonus spell list, but they also have access to their entire class list worth of spells. It might be a shorter class list.
Yeah.
But they have access to all of it. So why limit the Sorcerer to this handful of spells known without making sure that they always have the iconic spells that they would need to sort of fit with their theme?
Right.
Whether it's a bonus spell list that was in Unearthed Arcana for the Storm Sorcerer, or coming up with custom list for maybe one for each of the dragons, or like here are 5 spells that all the dragons get, and then 5 spells that each of the dragons have unique to them.
Yeah, each one gets one spell unique.
Right. So I felt it was perfectly justifiable to say, yeah, let's give the Sorcerer some bonus spells. I look at the Sorcerer and I look at the Wizard and I see that they're the closest competitors to each other. And I can't see why I would ever pick a Sorcerer over a Wizard ever in 5th edition. Right. And there were times in 3rd edition where I could say, like, you know what, I might play a Sorcerer. I have a strong theme in mind. I'm going to pick the spells that fit that theme, and I might play a Sorcerer over a Wizard.
Right.
Personally, I made a ton of NPC casters Sorcerers instead of Wizards because it was just easier to run those mechanics in the way 3rd edition NPC building was worked out. So like having a bonus spell list for each of the Sorcerer's origins is important to me because it kind of fits that theme. The second thing I would do for Sorcerers is give them full access to the Wizard spell list. And just have a Sorcerer Wizard combined spell list. These are the arcane spells. This is arcane magic.
Right.
There's not a difference between Sorcerer and Wizard magic. It's just it's a matter of approach, not effect.
Either study or you just know.
You either study or you just know.
Yeah, and actually a great fictional reference point for that.
Right.
You just watched it.
Yes.
The fabulous Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell.
Yeah, it just came out on Netflix, well, maybe not just came out, but it's been out on Netflix for a little bit, and I finally was able to get around to watching it. I've never read the book. Let me backtrack. I attempted to read the book.
Oh, yeah?
And could never really get past the first couple of chapters. I don't know why. I'm sure it's a great book. Just one in the headspace for it at the time.
Right.
But watching the show, by the end of the first episode, or certainly by the second episode, you're just kind of like, this is a story of a wizard who has struggled and studied and is jealous and prideful of his magic.
A miserly old
buys some spells off the street and is casting magic, that evening.
Exactly.
And so I thought that the interplay between Strange and Norrell is a great way to model perhaps the interplay between a sorcerer and a wizard, and to highlight what it is that makes sorcerous magic different from wizardly magic, because in my mind they're both doing the same thing. It's just a matter of approach.
Yeah, different means to the same end.
Different means to the same end, and so I like it. I've also found inspiration for bringing metamagic to the other classes in Strange and Norrell, because I saw it and I was like, okay, he's got this wonderful library full of all these books,
right?
And he's taking one off the shelf and casting a spell from it. Or he's brewing a potion in order to boost his magical capacity or induce madness in him at some point. And I thought, like, what if you took metamagic? Sorcerer gets the metamagic. I don't want to take anything away from Sorcerer.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't. It needs all the help it can get, in my opinion. So I could leave metamagic the way it works. Give metamagic to other classes by saying, you know what, if you use these particular material components, you've got powdered red dragon scales. So whenever you cast your fireballs or your firebolts or your scorching rays or whatever it is, they're maximized, they're heightened. And then really just enforcing the fact that you've got to go acquire these special material components that you use to cast your spells with. Yeah. Or maybe there's other spell implements or arcane foci that you can have that would grant metamagic properties on a limited level. Yeah. And then you start thinking, like, okay, well, what would that look like for clerics? And it's like maybe a special amulet or an incense that they burn before they pray for spells would grant metamagic effects, so that other casters get access to the cool metamagic, but the sorcerer just does it.
Yeah, they don't need any. They don't need anything.
They don't need it. They just do it.
Exactly.
And so that's, I think, a way of enforcing the fact that the sorcerer just lives and breathes and is magic, versus the other classes who have to have some intermediary,
right.
Whether it's study, a pact, a patron,
right.
to grant them the spells, or the divine spark that clerics, or the connection with nature that druids get.
Also, an option for that might be, I mean, it is an investment of resource for the character leveling up, but if you do a feat, much like the martial
adept.
Martial adept.
Yeah.
Where you just, you have a list of the metamagic, and you can pick one or two.
Yeah.
You have a couple of points you can use per day, which means, and maybe you can move one slot into points.
Right.
You can transfer one slot or transfer it out.
Right.
Your points into a spell slot. You can do that once.
Yeah.
Either one way or the other. And I don't know. I mean, it might be a way to.
I could certainly see it. If we look at parallels between them, and the maneuver dice that the battle masters get are sort of comparable to the metamagic that the sorcerers get, even though I know that not all fighters get maneuver dice.
Right.
But if we look at it that way and say, for the cost of a feat, you can get a couple of metamagic options, some handful of spell points, and your sorcery points. I'd probably call them metamagic points.
Let's get to the brass tacks of the class.
Right. So the belly aching aside and personal preferences aside about what I think the sorcerer needs, or let's take the sorcerer as is. And what it has and what it offers. And I think that if you're into blasting, if you're into if you're into that kind of thing, then the sorcerer is going to be good for you. If you're into buffing and offering those buffs to other characters in the party, the sorcerer is going to be a good option for that. So like looking at the dragon sorcerer, it's pretty obvious that just the way the spell selection works, that those dragons that do fire damage are going to be the better options if you're looking at it from a pure sort of an optimizational standpoint, getting the most out of the class.
Yes.
That said, the dragon sorcerer is a strong option. You get a bit more resilient, eventually can fly, getting extra damage on your chosen type of element. It seems like of the player's handbook options, of the stronger of the two. And so I there's a lot of room for a dragon sorcerer, and I can think of a lot of different ways that you could play it, whether it's a heritage sort of bloodline thing, whether it's being infused with particular draconic magic because of a prophecy or a pact or something, although that's venturing into warlock territory at that point.
Did a dragon give half of its heart so that you could live when you were young?
Yes, exactly. So of the two options in the player's handbook, dragon is probably the one that I would go with.
Right.
And at some point, sorcerers and dragon magic kind of became intertwined, and this is the option that we have for that.
Yeah.
There's not a lot that you have to worry about with it. You pick the element that you like. Fire's going to be better just because there's more spells based off of fire. But that is what it is. And maybe if you want to play something different, you want to play one that keys off of, say, cold, then you can talk to your DM and say, like, hey, can we turn some of these other spells, have them deal cold damage, so you have Ice Ball, Freezing Ray, things like that.
Yeah, and there's no reason not to. We've done that in the past. Because, again, the spells in the spell book are just the most well-known, the most general.
Right.
They're going to be in the spellcasting for dummies section at your local, bookstore.
We have mentioned before, I think, where yes, the player's handbook spells are the most common, and maybe you're playing in a campaign world where magic is in an ebb and the spells represent all that's survived, or maybe it's just you're at the opposite end and these are just the most common ones. There's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of other spells that do something different. So see if your DM will let you swap out some spells if you're going to play a Draconic sorcerer.
Yeah, just so you can have fun doing something besides fire damage.
Something besides fire damage.
I mean, we all like setting shit on fire.
Right.
But
maybe you want to do something different.
Exactly.
And then for the Wild Mage, I don't know. I'm of two minds about it. I like the idea of the Wild Mage, and the thematic text that accompanies it says that it's more of the generic option for someone who's just good at magic.
Right.
I'm not satisfied with that answer. I wish there was a more generic option for just someone who's good at magic naturally. But for the Wild Mage, I would definitely want to get with my DM and see the Tides of Chaos power. How often are they going to let me roll on that wild magic table so that I can get the use of that on-demand advantage back?
Yeah, that seems a little vague.
It's a little
the
vague.
way it's worded.
The DM can allow you, or I forget the exact wording of it, but it is vague.
I just looked it up, and
Gotcha.
it said the DM can allow a roll on the table.
Right.
Which means then that gives you your ability to change something, right?
You get the ability to yeah, I think it's tied to the ability to give yourself advantage on checks. And so I think that, like, if you've got a DM who's not going to play well with that, if they're, say, stingy isn't the right word, but I start to think of it in terms like that. Or just like, if they're not going to let you, say,
Shiesty?
make use of your
Sorry.
that's all right. Make use of your class features.
Yeah.
In a way that's satisfying to you, in a way that seems to be like it's designed. It's a trade-off, right? You have to roll on this table. And it might not be beneficial, or it might be inconvenient. And so that Tides of Chaos power, having it be so much up to DM purview, can be a drawback for some people.
Because, I mean, can you think of another class that has a limitation on it where the DM gets involved on whether or not you get a benefit for something happening?
The only class I can think of that comes close to it is an illusionist, and depending on how your DM interprets illusions, how they react. But the difference between the two is that, you know, if you're playing an illusionist and the DM isn't playing along, there's really no rule support for that. It's a matter of how the DM plays their NPCs and their monsters and how they react to illusions.
Yeah, where the town guard all has like 18 intelligence, so something just doesn't look right. So I'm going to obviously go over and investigate that.
Obviously.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's probably the closest thing I can think of, that having a class feature so dependent upon just DM whim. So I would get that straight. How does your DM feel about Tides of Chaos? Are they gonna be generous and let you use it as often as you'd like, or at the very least more than once a day?
Right.
Or however, you know. And so I don't know. That's where I'm at with the Wild Mage. In concept, I kind of look at it and go, I think this is interesting. I think this is neat. But in execution, I think there's probably a lot to be desired.
Well, as a DM yourself, how would you handle that? Say I'm playing a wild sort. Oh, I rolled a 1. What would be your thought process? And
I think with class abilities like that, if the player, I am always fond of giving the player as much rope as they'd like to hang themselves with, as they want. So if the player is just like, yes, I want to roll on this wild search table as often as possible, then I might just say, oh, okay, and for the most part, roll with it and let them choose to be able to roll on the table. In addition, for getting the use of their Tides of Chaos back. I have no problems with that. I don't think that there's any unbalancing issues with it. It's a risk-reward thing. And if a player wants to keep going there and keep rolling that dice and see what happens, and you know, maybe something interesting will come of it, or at the very least, you know, they're satisfied feeling like they're getting to play their class the way that they want to. That's personally how I would do it. But I know that there's a lot of DMs out there who don't do that.
See, I think for me, I would probably just like roll a D10 anytime they roll a D1, rolled a 1 on a 20. I'd roll a D10. If I roll a 1, then they get it.
I can see that. I can see having it be random. I can see having you know, getting the use of this class feature back. And here we are talking about the Wild Mage, and we haven't really talked about much else of them other than this one feature, Tides of Chaos.
Right.
And it's just that, you know, if you go online and you look in, you know, you're looking for advice about the Sorcerer, a lot of times you will see things like, don't play a Wild Mage. It's too DM dependent. And this is the reason why, because there's that vague language in there that says, well, if your DM's a nice guy, they'll let you have that use of the feature back, you know, before you finish your long rest. So I don't know. I feel like that the Wild Mage could use some polishing and could be less DM dependent. But we haven't even gotten to the Storm Sorcerer, and I'm sure, you know, you've got the most experience with that. So
that's my jam.
I mean,
well, let me tell you, it is night and day between the first live play and the second. Okay. Even though it's just. My character feels like a storm sorcerer now. Right. You know, I can pull lightning out of the sky. I can cast all these things. I can use cold. I mean, I should be able to make the wind blow so hard that it gets cold, right? Right. Yeah. But originally it was like, well, I can either do thunder and lightning, or I can do lightning and cold. And the storm sorcerer lends itself to thunder and lightning. And then you start looking at the spells, and it's like, yeah, Chromatic Orb is anything. Right. Thunder Wave is Thunder Wave. Shatter is Shatter.
And then you get what? And then you're in Lightning Bolt, which is...
Well, no, I'm just talking straight Thunder. I'm just talking Thunder here. Thunder. And then...
I can't think of any others.
So,
I can't think of any.
Where's the Thunder Love?
I don't know that there is any anymore. Certainly can't think of any off the top of my head, and no spells sort of jump out at me. So then you are left with you've got some low-level Thunder spells, and then
yeah, they can scale, but give me more. Give me different, give me different areas of effect. Give me different things that I can. So, lightning is a little bit more robust. There's a few more lightning spells that you get to choose from.
Yeah.
As we've already talked about, Call Lightning is such an obvious spell for the Storm Sorcerer. Again, thank you for letting me have that back.
I mean,
And so I love what my character will be able to do. I can't wait for a moment to cut loose. Every time I'm about to cut loose, so far in Razzle Sin, they run away.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
you just don't have that opportunity yet.
And I'm getting D&D blue balls. So
you feel like you haven't had a chance to really see what the Storm Sorcerer can do and how how much they can lay the hurt on someone if they want to.
Exactly. Well, I mean, I've been able to do a little, and it's fun. I mean, I love Twin. I love Quicken.
Yeah.
Those things are awesome. Being able to do that in the same round would be. I mean, you quicken a first or higher level spell, and then you twin, your cantrip.
Yeah.
And hey, you're just throwing magic left and right. You feel like a badass, right?
Yeah.
But that's the thing is that's what you do. You're a glass cannon.
Yeah.
Like I've gone glass cannon route, right? I have some buff, but I mean I can see a sorcerer that is like all about buffing and debuffing, and I could see how you could make that fun. You're running around, you're paralyzing people, you're making you're enlarging this guy or giving this guy a boost or whatever.
Yeah.
You're giving haste to those people. That's something I've done a lot in the Razzle Sin game is supporting our fighters and giving them haste, because it's like, hey, if the paladin can hit more, they can smite more.
Yeah.
Hey, if the ranger can hit more, that's one more hunter's mark, So you can be very effective as a support caster if that's what you. But again, you have to have a tight concept.
Just have a tight concept
within the restrictions of the spell list.
And I think that spell list is rather restricting, and if only because I see there are three primary arcane caster classes in the game: sorcerer, warlock, and wizard. I don't really count bard as arcane, although who knows whatever they're doing over there. I mean, they're doing their own thing over there.
It technically is, but they also have like some kind of clerical spells.
Some kind of clerical stuff. But in terms of just like pure arcane, to me, it's sorcerer, warlock, and wizard, and I see them as. So in my mind, if you make one of those three characters, there's a certain role that you fulfill in the party. One of it is dealing with minions, AOE damage, that kind of thing. Another is sort of ranged spell support. The warlock excels at this, but I also expect a certain amount of information gathering and reconnaissance, that magical reconnaissance that a class can do. And I don't find that that's something that the sorcerer does very well.
No, it can't.
They can't fulfill that generic arcanist role.
They don't. Well. I'm not sure if there's any divination spells.
There's some low-level ones that are okay. I mean, we've got clairvoyance at 3rd level. They've got detect thoughts at 2nd. But we're talking like the sort of strategic level divinations that you cast, contact other plane being the big one I'm thinking about. Those ones that you can kind of like, okay, how do we find out about the bad guy? How do we get to them? I find that there's less of that, and again, just making sorcerers and wizards have the same spell list would go a long way towards shoring up that weakness that I see in sorcerer. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I hate to tell people that their favorite class is whatever, but at the same time, I think it needs work. And I think the class that we have in the player's handbook is a good start, but there's just, I don't know, there's a lot that it would take me to go in. Like, I would really love to play that class. Yeah.
Bonus spells would help. Bigger spells list would be a bigger help.
Yeah. And just more origins. I think maybe having one that's more Fey-aligned, certainly having one that's more generic. And I'm glad to see some of the stuff. We'll have obviously an Unearthed Arcana show where we talk about the new Sorcerous options that came out this past week. But I think it's a step in the right direction. But for now, just looking at the player's handbook, needs something more. I can't see myself ever really playing a sorcerer. And that's maybe a shame. I don't know.
Well, that's life, though.
That's life.
I mean, we already have the editions right, and then we have some people split off and do Pathfinder.
Yep.
Like, I mean, you know, when are we going to have the Episcopal RPers and then the Catholic? You know what I mean?
They're already in. They're all playing 13th Age.
Yeah, it's playing 13th Age. and then you got new Cypher with Monty Cook.
We got all this other weird stuff going on.
You know.
I don't know. You know, the edition wars were one of those times. On the one hand, I loved the edition wars because I loved a good internet argument. You know, I just liked watching. I loved people arguing about disassociated mechanics, and just a ton of weird jargon that came out of the edition wars that I liked. And you know, I liked arguing about whether or not 4th edition sucked and which was better. But at the end of the day, it's like I just don't have the heart for it anymore. You want to argue with rules about me? I don't care. Whatever. Everybody plays this game differently.
Yeah.
Like you can argue all you want about the raw and whether the rules is written is more important than the rules is intended or the rules as you play them. And it's just like everybody plays this game differently. Nobody follows the rules exactly.
Yeah. Each table will have one little thing that they all agree that sucks, and you just house rule it.
They just house rule it. Sometimes it happens without even knowing it. You just slip into a way of playing, and everybody just accepts it. Like we were for two whole campaigns with flanking rules.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, we're playing with an optional rule.
Yeah.
Because we just
assumed.
Slipped right in. Yeah, everybody plays the game differently, and so when people argue with us about this rule or that rule or this interpretation, I just go, that's just your opinion, man.
You're out of your element.
It's just stop trying to pretend your opinion on how you play the rules is the way it should be.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
All right, Pruitt, clap one time. Jim, clap one time. Give me a get off my lawn.
Get off my damn lawn, you role players.
You damn kids.
You damn kids.
With all your rules.
Lawyers. I just, oh,
your backpacks full of books that will govern your life till the day you die.
Rules lawyers suck the joy out of this game.
I'm sorry for all those years, Jim.
It's all right, Pruitt.
It's probably better than my time as a power gamer, which still happens time to time. But, you know, every now and again you want to be a munchkin.
Every now and then.
What are we talking about? Oh, warlocks.
We're going to talk about warlocks next.
Oh, is that what we're doing right now?
Yeah.
Let's talk about warlocks, Jim.